Tam O'Shanter, from which the name of the famed Scottish hat derives, is an old Scottish legend, later turned into a narrative poem by Brother Robert Burns. Both Brother Robert Burns and Brother William Harvey have employed the personage of Tam O'Shanter as the chief protagonist in their poems, and herein I would like to introduce our Masonic readers to the efforts of both brother Freemasons. Robert Burns was born on January 25, 1759 and died in Dumfries, Scotland, on July 21, 1796. Any Mason unfamiliar with Brother Burns is almost certainly familiar with his best-known poem, Auld Lang Syne, traditionally sung in lyrical form to welcome in the new year and also at many annual Masonic officer installations to celebrate the passing of the torch from one worshipful master to the next. Burns wrote Tam O'Shanter for a friend, Francis Grose, who had asked him to write a few lines to accompany an illustration of Alloway Kirk. Kirk is an old Scottish word meaning church, intended for Volume 2 of Grose's book, The Antiquities of Scotland. Burns found inspiration in an old Ayrshire, Scotland tale from his youth in which, after a long day at market, a farmer from Carrick stays drinking until near the witching hour, the hour between night and day. As the farmer rides for home upon his trusty horse, his route takes him past the haunted Alloway Kirk. Through the brightly lit church windows he sees witches dancing to the accompaniment of the devil himself playing the bagpipes. One young witch, dancing in a short undergarment, so impresses the farmer that he shouts, "Wheel Luppen, Maggie way, the short sark. Well done, short skirt," and then he must flee for his life as witches and warlocks spot him and give chase. He makes for the bridge over the River Doon, knowing that the fiendish creatures cannot cross running water. As Burns explained to Grose in a letter after penning Tam O'Shanter, "I need not mention the universally known fact, that no diabolical power can pursue you beyond the middle of a running stream." In Burns' poem, despite the speed of Tam's mare, as Tam reaches the middle of the arch of the bridge over the river, the pursuing, vengeful hags are so close at his heels that one of them actually springs forward and manages to grip the horse's tail, which immediately gave way to her infernal grip, as if blasted by a stroke of lightning. The poor mare's tail never regrew. Burns used the old legend to craft a wonderful tale about Tam O'Shanter, who never takes the advice of his poor wife Kate. He stays out at all hours, drinking his life away, until one night poor Tam, like the farmer of legend, has to flee for his life from witches gathered to dance to the devil's bagpipes at the old kirk in Alloway. At the end of the poem, Burns changes the witch's name to Nanny D and, instead of using the phrase short sark, Tam calls out instead, "Wheel done, cutty sark" being an 18th century Scots term for a short chemise, a short undergarment or petticoat. Hyphenated, cutty sark was a nickname given to Burns' witch Nanny D, after the garment she wore. The figurehead of the famous ship, the tea-clipper Cutty Sark, is named after the character. Burns' poem is populated by several unforgettable characters. Besides Tam himself, there is his drinking pal, Suitor Johnny. Suitor is a Scottish term for a shoemaker, or a nickname for any native inhabitant of the royal borough of Selkirk, Scottish borders. Tam's long-suffering wife, Kate, the young witch Nanny or Cutty Sark, and Tam's gallant mare, Meg or Maggie. Tam O'Shanter is a poem that encompasses humour, horror, and social commentary, as the unsightly, tail-less condition of poor Maggie serves as a stern admonishment to the Carrick farmers against being out after hours and drinking too late in Ayr, Scotland. Written in 1790, it is one of Burns' finest poems and his own personal favourite. Vivid and inventive, it turns a little-known local tale of witches into an epic narrative, loved the world over. It first appeared in the Edinburgh Magazine for March 1791, a month before it appeared in the second volume of Francis Grose's Antiquities of Scotland. Tam O'Shanter and the Merry Masons, by Brother William Harvey, was itself inspired by Burns' poem. It is an amusing piece of boisterous rhyme in which Brother Harvey presents the redoubted Tam as a candidate for the light, which shines only in the mysterious caves of the Masonic ceremonial. Indeed, its humor cannot be fully enjoyed except by one initiated into the mysteries of our craft. Brother William Harvey's Masonic career was, to say the least, exceptional, culminating in his role as Provincial Grand Master of Forfarshire in Scotland, 1934–36, shortly before his death. He was born 1874 in Stirling, Scotland. William's father died when he was 3 years old. When he reached the age of 11 he was obliged to leave school to work and support the family. He was first apprenticed to a hatter, but then, in 1889, was hired by William Kinross, carriage builders, in Stirling. He later entered the law office of Messrs. Matthey, McCluskey and Lupton to work as a law clerk. But his first love was writing, and when the opportunity came in 1899 to enter the writing profession, he joined the literary staff of the Laing Thompson Company in Dundee. In 1904 he joined the staff of the People's Journal. He became literary editor of the Dundee Advertiser between 1908 and 1912, and was then appointed to manage the fiction department, a post he revelled in. Harvey was an avid Robert Burns devotee, delivering many speeches and talks around the country on Scotland's most famous bard. He wrote what some would consider the definitive work on Robert Burns as a Freemason. Burns visited his mother lodge, Stirling Ra, Royal Arch, number 76, and his subsequent book, Robert Burns in Stirlingshire, published in 1899, is still a standard reference work. The story of Tam O'Shanter and the Merry Masons, written by Harvey in 1917, begins with Tam sitting in a local tavern having a drink when he overhears a group of Masons talking. Curious, he strikes up a conversation with Robert Burns and the rest of the group about the craft, and thinking him a good group of Merry Masons, asks how he can join. Burns pledges to Tam to be one of his makers, and says that he will recommend him at the next lodge meeting. They spend an interesting evening carousing together, drinking whiskey punch and toasting to Tam's decision to join the fraternity before Tam has to go back home to his wife, Kate, who is waiting at home for him to return. But before he can return home, Tam is stripped down to his underclothes including his breeks, trousers, and shoes, and is promptly initiated into the fraternity. We can immediately see the common threads between Burns' Tam O'Shanter and Harvey's Tam O'Shanter and the Merry Masons. Both stories are told in narrative form and center on Tam O'Shanter as the protagonist. Also, we can see in both poems that Tam's friend is a sooter, shoemaker, and both stories have Tam's wife, Kate, waiting for him at the end of his adventure. But that is where the similarities end. Although each story tells us that Tam O'Shanter spends a late evening with his drinking buddies, enjoying booze and bonhomie, Burns' Tam is fleeing for his life from witches and warlocks giving chase, while Harvey's poem is more a tale of an evening's carousing, with Tam engaging in conversation with the poet Robert Burns and his Masonic friends, and is solidly Masonic with Masonic references replete throughout the poem. When Merry Masons meet at Nict, to crack about Masonic licht, and tell their tales with porky glee, oh what they say, and what they see. When, with the compasses and square, they draw droll figures on the floor. Or paint the canopy abune, with sun and stars and quarter moon. Or curl their nose, or crook their lip, or twirl their thumbs in sign and grip. They make poor bodies blink their en, as Tam O'Shanter did yestreen. When, sitting with the suitor Hiverin in Willie White's Masonic tavern. And, thinken not though Mells and Trowans, he got an inkling o' their dowans. What wonderful imagery Harvey paints of masonry in his poem of brothers meeting on the level in a local tavern. Harvey makes historical reference to several biblical figures represented in masonry, and to Burns' most famous poem, Auld Lang Syne. With merry tales of Auld Lang Syne, they cracked of gavel, plum and line. Told how King Solomon was sire, to all the Wedow wives in Tyre. How Boaz kissed his loof to Ruth, and Jachin was a wily youth. How Hiram socked to make folk dine, on corn with oil, to save the wine. Brother Harvey alludes humorously to how King Solomon spent his time in Tyre when not meeting with King Hiram. Boaz kisses the palm of his hand, the equivalent of blowing a kiss to Ruth when Jachin was just a young lad. An operative Grandmaster Hiram Abiff encourages the others to fill up on corn with oil, another allusion to masonry, to save the wine, perhaps for himself. And though I say it, I'd never keep a husband frae his virtuous sleep. But ere you leave our circle Tam, let's south a friendship with a dram. A parting glass Burns cried in glee, let's drink it chaps, with 3 times 3. And show to Tam our high regard, Count Warden's Count cried Scotland's bard. Near the end of Harvey's poem, Robert Burns welcomes Tam to join the fraternity before he leaves with a toast to 3 times 3, referring to the 3 knocks a candidate makes to enter a lodge 3 times, i.e., 3 for the AR, FC, and MM degrees. Wheel mounted on his faithful mare, with thocts though compasses and square. Tam took the road with easy canter, kennin that soon, the farm O'Shanter. Wad rise before him, and his dame wad smile, weel pleased to see him hame. But lang ere, Tam got hame that night, I swear he saw Masonic licht. He found the point within the centre which unenlightened dawner enter, and learned where masons first are made, and how they follow out the trade. By level steps, and plummet actions, avoiding plots, and ploys, and pactions. Sign climb the steps, 3, 5, and 7 to reach old Hiram's nuke in heaven. As canny on the mare guard trotten, Tam mused, all worldly thoughts forgotten. The story has a happy ending for Tam O'Shanter in Brother Harvey's poem. Tam, favorably impressed by his evening's conversation with Robert Burns and the rest of his merry Masons, finds the Masonic light which all Masons seek. Finding the point within the circle and learning where Masons are first made, Tam shows himself a ready and worthy candidate for the mysteries of Freemasonry. Allusions to the level and plumb, the 3, 5, and 7 steps in the fellowcraft degree, and his desire to renounce his worldly ways, all speak of a candidate who has already become a Mason in his heart and is now ready to formalize his commitment to the fraternity. Both Tam O'Shanter poems, by Burns and Harvey respectively, are excellent reading. I heartily recommend reading them to all brothers to gain a greater appreciation of the craft and a glimpse into the minds of these outstanding Masonic authors. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video and are looking for more Masonic light, please visit the New Jersey Lodge of Masonic Research and Education, number 1786 at http://njlaw.com.